The first question of the fundamentals that I like to ask and that are part of my integrated view of health. So this is a model that I've created and drawn on several different ideas. So one of the first questions, or not the first, one of the questions that I really like to ask is the question of, am I safe? So this is a really good question to consider and ask yourself, and really the focus and consider your health and well-being in relation to healing, pain, and the brain. So if we focus on the brain first of all and go, okay, am I safe? It's like, well, what does that really mean? What does that look like in a tangible way? So many different things. So the first thing is to recognize, or one of the things to recognize, is that when it comes to the brain, and remember the brain's job is to process that information, and really we've got our hypothalamus, which is in the center of the head, and its job really is to gather and compute, so just to translate. So it's monitoring what is happening with your common senses of sight, sound, and touch, and then from there it's like, okay, I need to translate and go, what does that mean? So it applies kind of like meaning, and this all happens in a really, really short space of time. It's like you have a trigger, and that could be either something that you sense in your body in the physical, or it could be something that you see. So again, using those common senses and those the information from those common senses travel like electrically through the body, and then that information goes to the brain, where it then has to process that, bring meaning to it, and then decide what does that equal or mean. So the sun is out, it's nice and sunny. Well, what does that mean? So is it actually that it's too much for my eyes, I should actually have a pair of glasses shades on? Is it that actually it's too hot for my skin? So this is very much an individual thing. How does that information coming into the body get translated, and that communication process that happens? And again, it's a cyclical. So it's not that it has a linear here and here. So they're very much cycles that happen within the brain, how the body translates and interprets information. And one of the things with regards to that I wanted to share with you was I was listening to a really interesting podcast that was talking about ADHD, which is something that I've been really interested in, particularly because the brain, when you're looking at ADHD, then people that have ADHD, it's like your brain works differently, so, or neurodivergent. Our brains work differently. So I'm saying our brain because it's come to my attention that actually my brain doesn't work like other people's brains work. And I've spent a whole lifetime trying to fit myself in a little box, or do it this way and do it that way. And it often takes me twice as long, or I have to go all around the houses to get to that end point, or just find another way. So I've been very creative and had to become very good at problem solving because of that. Again, the coming back to that idea of the brain and am I safe? If the body and the information either coming to the brain electrically through those different common senses, and the brain translating that, or it can be coming from internally. So we have our hormonal messenger system, our endocrine system, and again that is sending chemical messages. So that's what hormones are, chemical messengers and information to our brain to go, it's not safe. So whether it's your the blood sugar levels, whether it's the temperature, whether it's the blood volume, whether it's how the heart rate is going at, whether it's hunger, is the body hunger, am I overheating? So all of these chemical information and messages are having to go through the brain, and all of that, when the body is safe, it translates to homeostasis. So all of the systems and the cycles of feedback energy, so your thoughts, your emotions, your actions you take, that action, reaction, translation, all kind of like has a cyclical impact that either goes in a kind of like, yay, let's go activation loop, or if it's no, something's not right, something's not safe, that's when our nervous system goes into that fight or flight or freeze or fawn, where you kind of go along with it for a while, until actually it's safe to either divert, or actually you're then just stuck in another treadmill going along with it until that exit route happens where you can get off that action or that behavior. Sounds really simple, but it isn't always simple. But these are some of the things that I can really help and support people with, is to just find out and to assist to create a really good foundation of the support and the framework that is needed to help your body feel safe. I mentioned to you a podcast, so ADHD and working with the thought, emotions and action cycle. And this was interesting for me because one of the things that I look at is that integrated approach to health and well-being. And actually, it's, whilst we have our 4 realms or areas that we work with, everyone is potentially a doorway in. And being able to recognize what is going on is really key, but also knowing, well, if there's a cycle, if there's a journey with some feedback loops that has to happen, and when things are working, then the body's like, yes, stop sending me that message, I know everything is safe, let's bring the heart rate down, or whatever the information and signaling needs to happen. Or if it's happening the other way and it's like, if not safe, everything's a danger, my heart rate is going, we need to unpack, calm the nervous system down. It's like, well, where in the cycle do we need to interrupt it? So the way that medicine looks at dealing or supporting with different alternative issues is it often interrupts somewhere in that cycle of activation and programming and what the body needs to do. It will either interrupt it at some phase in that cyclical action. So it's really good to consider. It's like, if I'm really emotional, can I actually start with what I'm thinking? Well, no, because I need to start with either emotions or taking action. Or do I need to actually start with a thought? Or do I need to actually start by taking action in some way, shape or form? The idea of cyclicalness and patterns is very much a part of integrative medicine, and it's also a part of looking at that bigger picture of health and taking control of your health. And the idea of patterns and cycles and symptoms and signs is something that I discover and help you to understand more about in my workshop called Take Control of Your Health. And that's going to be coming up or happening in June. So if you're interested in coming along and attending that, then please do let me know.